The morning sun rose over New Haven Colony like it had for the past 20 years. Jake Morrison stood on his office balcony, watching the farmers head out to their fields. The crystal formations on the distant hills caught the light and threw rainbows across the valley. It was a beautiful sight that never got old. Jake had been the colony administrator for 8 years now. He knew almost everyone in the settlement by name. There was old Ben Taylor, who ran the biggest farm, his daughter Amy, who taught at the local school, and his son Ben Jr., who helped with the harvest. The colony had grown from a small outpost to a thriving world with over 2 million people. The communication panel in his office buzzed. Jake walked back inside and pressed the answer button. The face of Captain Ryan Walsh appeared on the screen. Ryan commanded the patrol ship that protected their sector of space. "Morning, Jake," Ryan said with a smile. "Just checking in. Everything quiet down there?" "Same as always," Jake replied. "The Henderson family just had their third baby. Mrs. Collins is complaining about the weather again." "You know the usual," Ryan laughed. "Sounds perfect. We picked up some strange energy readings at the edge of the system yesterday, but they're gone now. Probably just solar storms," Jake nodded. "Solar storms happen sometimes. They could mess with sensors and communication for a few hours." "Nothing to worry about. How's Susan doing?" Jake asked. Susan Brooks was Ryan's navigator and Jake's younger sister. "She's fine. Keeps complaining about the boring patrol routes. Says she wants to see some action for once." "Tell her to be careful what she wishes for," Jake said. They both knew the old saying about wanting excitement in space. It usually meant something had gone very wrong. After ending the call, Jake walked through the colony's main street. Haven's Rest had grown into a proper city over the years. There were shops, restaurants, schools, and even a small hospital. Children played in the parks while their parents worked in the fields or the processing plants. At the school, Amy Taylor was teaching a class of 8-year-olds about Earth's history. She showed them pictures of the old blue planet where their grandparents had come from. The children asked questions about oceans and snow, things they had never seen on their warm, dry world. "Will we ever go to Earth?" asked little Katie Murphy. "Maybe someday," Amy said. "But this is our home now. Your parents and grandparents worked very hard to build this place for you." Meanwhile, far above the planet, Captain Walsh was on the bridge of his ship, the USS Liberty. It was a small vessel with a crew of just 50 people. Navigator Susan Brooks sat at her station, checking their patrol route for the day. "Same old circle around the system," she said. "I swear we could do this with our eyes closed." Chief Engineer Pete Adams looked up from his console. "Boring is good in our line of work." "Boring means nobody's shooting at us," Pete was right. The human fleet was small and spread thin across dozens of star systems. Each patrol ship had to cover huge areas of space. If trouble ever came, they would be badly outnumbered. The Liberty was one of only 3 ships assigned to protect the New Haven sector. The other 2 were even smaller cargo escorts. It was not much protection for over 2 million people, but humanity had been at peace for 20 years. The peace treaty with the Zephyrian Empire had been signed when Susan was just a child. The Zephyrians were an old alien race with a vast empire. They had agreed to leave human space alone in exchange for trade rights and technology sharing. "Contact on sensors," reported Lieutenant Jim Parker from the communications station. "Merchant ship requesting permission to enter the system." "Identify them," Ryan ordered. "It's the cargo hauler Morningstar, Captain. They're carrying food supplies from the inner colonies. Clear them for approach to New Haven, standard route." This was normal. Cargo ships came and went every few days, bringing supplies the colony could not make itself and taking away the food they grew. New Haven fed half a dozen other worlds with its massive farms. Down on the planet, Ben Taylor Sr. was checking his grain storage facilities. The harvest had been excellent this year. The new hybrid crops developed by the colony's scientists were producing 30% more food than the old varieties. His son Ben Jr. drove up in a farming robot. "Dad, the south fields are ready for harvest. Should we start tomorrow?" "Sounds good, son. Get the Anderson family to help. Their equipment works better with ours." The Andersons lived on the next farm over. Their daughter Linda was dating Ben Jr., though both families pretended not to notice. Young love was the same everywhere in the galaxy. In the colony's command center, Defense Coordinator Nancy White was reviewing the weekly security report. Crime was almost non-existent on New Haven. The biggest problems were usually disputes between farmers about water rights or teenagers causing minor trouble. Nancy had been a soldier once, back on Earth. She had requested assignment to New Haven because she wanted a quiet posting. After 15 years of active duty, she was tired of war games and military exercises. Colony security was much more relaxing. Her assistant, Corporal Tony Black, brought her a cup of coffee. "Anything interesting in the reports?" "Mrs. Johnson's chickens got loose again and ate the Murphy family's vegetable garden." "That's about as exciting as it gets around here." They both laughed. Nancy liked it this way. She had seen enough conflict to last a lifetime. As evening approached, Jake Morrison finished his daily rounds. He stopped by the memorial park in the center of town. Stone monuments listed the names of the first colonists who had died building the settlement. Most had died from accidents or sickness, not violence. New Haven had always been a peaceful place. The colony's children were playing in the park while their parents talked nearby. Families gathered for evening meals. The local restaurant was busy with people celebrating birthdays and anniversaries. Life was good on New Haven. Jake did not know that far beyond the edge of the solar system, hidden behind the gas giants' moons, alien ships were gathering in the darkness. The Zephyrian war fleet had been traveling for weeks to reach this remote human colony. War Commander HFY stood on the bridge of his flagship, studying tactical displays of the human settlement below. His orders were clear. The human expansion into space had to be stopped before it became a threat to the Zephyrian Empire. The peace treaty meant nothing now. The High Council had decided that humanity was growing too fast and becoming too advanced. Better to end the threat while the humans were still weak and scattered across many worlds. New Haven had been chosen because it was isolated and lightly defended. The destruction of 2 million humans would send a clear message to Earth. Stay in your own small corner of space or face the consequences. As the people of New Haven Colony settled down for another peaceful night, they had no idea it would be their last. The attack came without warning at dawn. Captain Ryan Walsh was drinking his morning coffee when every alarm on the USS Liberty started screaming at once. The bridge erupted in flashing red lights and urgent beeping sounds. "Report!" Ryan shouted as he ran to his command chair. Massive energy signatures appearing throughout the system, Susan Brooks called out from her navigation station. Her voice was tight with fear. "Sir, I'm reading over 2,000 ships materializing from hyperspace." 2,000? Ryan could not believe what he was hearing. "That's impossible. Run the scan again." "Scan confirmed, Captain," Lieutenant Parker said from communications. "They're Zephyrian vessels. Battleships, cruisers, and destroyers. They're surrounding the planet." Ryan's blood turned cold. The USS Liberty was just a small patrol ship with light weapons. Against 2,000 enemy warships, they might as well throw rocks. "Get me a direct line to Colony Command," he ordered, "and send an emergency message to Earth immediately. Use quantum burst transmission." On the planet below, Jake Morrison was eating breakfast when his emergency communicator started buzzing. He grabbed it and heard Ryan's panicked voice. "Jake, get everyone to the emergency shelters now. We have a massive Zephyrian fleet in the system." "This is not a drill." "Repeat, this is not a drill." Jake dropped his coffee cup and ran outside. The colony's warning sirens were already beginning to wail across Haven's Rest. People poured out of their houses looking confused and frightened. "Everyone to the shelters," Jake shouted. "This is an emergency evacuation." The emergency shelters had been built deep underground when the colony was first established. They could hold the entire population for several weeks if necessary. Jake had always thought they would never be needed. Amy Taylor was in her classroom when the sirens started. Her young students looked at her with wide, scared eyes. "Children, we need to go to the special safe room now," she said, trying to keep her voice calm. "Line up quietly and follow me." She led them out of the school building as families ran past them toward the shelter entrances. Parents were calling for their children. Cars and transport vehicles clogged the streets as people tried to reach safety. In space, the Zephyrian fleet had finished surrounding New Haven. War Commander HFY studied the tactical display on his ship's main screen. The human patrol vessel was pathetically small compared to his massive war fleet. "Destroy their ships first," he ordered his weapons officer. "Then begin the bombardment of the planet." The USS Liberty tried to run, but there was nowhere to go. Zephyrian plasma cannons lit up the darkness of space. Ryan watched helplessly as the beams reached out toward his ship. "Shields at maximum," he called out. "Return fire with everything we have." The Liberty's small weapons hit the nearest Zephyrian cruiser but barely scratched its armor. The enemy's return fire tore through the patrol ship's shields like they were made of paper. Hull breach on Deck 3. Pete Adams reported from engineering. We're losing atmosphere. Susan, get that message to Earth transmitted now, Ryan said. Already sent, Captain, she replied. Full details of the attack and enemy fleet size. Another Zephyrian plasma blast hit the Liberty directly. The ship shook apart and exploded in a ball of fire. Ryan Walsh and his crew of 50 brave men and women died instantly. But their warning message was already racing toward Earth at faster than light speed. On New Haven, the bombardment began. The first plasma bolts fell like burning stars from the sky. They hit the Colonial Government building where Jake Morrison was coordinating the evacuation. The entire structure vanished in a flash of superheated gas and molten metal. Ben Taylor Sr. was helping load families into transport vehicles when the sky above his farm exploded in light. A Zephyrian plasma cannon had targeted the grain storage facilities. The massive explosion could be seen from orbit. Amy, Ben Jr. shouted as he searched through the chaos for his sister. He found her helping children into a shelter entrance. Amy, we have to go now. They ran together toward the nearest underground bunker. Behind them, the colony's main power plant erupted in flames as alien weapons found their target. The lights went out across half the settlement. In the colony's command center, Nancy White was trying to coordinate the evacuation when the building above them started to collapse. Zephyrian bombardment had hit the structure directly. The shelter doors are sealed, Corporal Tony Black reported, but I don't think they'll hold against this kind of firepower. Nancy checked her weapons. She had a pistol and a rifle. Against a fleet of alien warships, they were useless. But she would not give up without a fight. The bombardment continued for hours. Zephyrian ships in orbit fired their plasma cannons at every building, every farm, every sign of human presence on the planet. The aliens were not just trying to conquer New Haven. They were trying to erase it completely. Ben Jr. and Amy Taylor made it to Shelter Complex 7 just as the main entrance was sealed. Inside, over 3,000 colonists huddled in the darkness. The power was out and the emergency lights were failing. How long can these shelters hold? Someone asked in the darkness. They were built to withstand orbital bombardment, Amy said, though her voice shook with fear. We should be safe here. She was wrong. The Zephyrians had weapons designed to crack open planetary fortresses. After 2 hours of concentrated fire, the shelters began to fail. Plasma beams burned through the reinforced metal doors. Superheated gas flooded the underground chambers. Ben Jr. held his sister as the walls around them started to glow red hot. I'm sorry, Amy, I'm so sorry. It's not your fault, she whispered. Tell Mom and Dad I love them. The shelter roof caved in. 3,000 people died in seconds as molten metal poured down from above. Across the planet, the same scene repeated in shelter after shelter. The Zephyrian fleet was methodical and thorough. They hunted down every underground bunker and burned through every protective barrier. Some colonists tried to escape in spacecraft from the small spaceport. The Zephyrian fighters shot down every ship that tried to leave the atmosphere. Others attempted to hide in the crystal caves outside the cities. Orbital sensors found them and plasma fire collapsed the caves. By evening, New Haven colony was gone. 2.3 million human beings had been murdered in a single day. The beautiful crystal formations were melted into glass. The farms were burned to ash. The cities were craters of fused rock. War Commander HFY surveyed the destruction from his flagship's observation deck. His orders had been to leave no survivors and no evidence of human presence. The mission was complete. Send a message to the human homeworld, he told his communications officer. Tell them this is what happens when they expand too far into space. Any military response will result in the destruction of additional colonies. The Zephyrian fleet departed New Haven space, leaving behind only a dead world. They believed they had sent humanity a clear message about the consequences of challenging the ancient empire. They had no idea what they had actually done. On Earth, the emergency quantum message from Captain Walsh arrived at Fleet Command, just as the Zephyrian ultimatum was being received. Admiral Lisa Carter read both messages with growing horror and rage. President Maria Rodriguez was awakened in the middle of the night and brought to the emergency command center deep beneath the capital city. When she saw the images from New Haven Colony, she could not speak for several minutes. 2 million people, she finally whispered. They killed 2 million innocent people. Admiral Carter placed a hand on the president's shoulder. Madam President, I need authorization to activate Project Phoenix. Do it, Rodriguez said without hesitation. Show them what humanity is really capable of. Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, massive metal doors that had been sealed for 50 years slowly began to open. Admiral Lisa Carter stood in the command center, watching dozens of screens showing hidden bases across human space. Each one was revealing ships that the galaxy had never seen before. Ships that were not supposed to exist. Status report, she called out to the technicians monitoring the awakening fleet. Phoenix Base Alpha is online, reported Commander Steve Johnson. 200 battleships launching now. Phoenix Base Beta launching 150. All systems are green. President Rodriguez watched in amazement as the hidden fleet emerged from concealment. How long has this been going on? 50 years, Madam President, answered Director Carl Evans, head of Strategic Defense. Ever since we first made contact with alien civilizations, we knew this day might come. The President had heard rumors about secret military projects, but nothing like this. On the screens around her, thousands of warships were rising from underwater bases, asteroid facilities, and hidden space stations. How many ships do we have? She asked. 500,000, ma'am, Carl replied, each one equipped with technology decades ahead of anything our public fleet ever had. The USS Vengeance was the first ship to fully emerge from Pacific Base 1. Captain Danny Foster stood on the bridge of the massive dreadnought, watching his crew take their stations. Every person on the ship was a volunteer who had trained for this moment their entire career. All departments report ready for departure, announced his executive officer, Commander Kate Murphy. Ship is at full combat readiness, Danny nodded. His ship alone carried enough firepower to destroy entire fleets. The Vengeance was 3 times larger than any vessel in humanity's public navy and armed with weapons the enemy had never encountered. Across the solar system, similar scenes were playing out at hidden bases. Ships emerged from inside asteroids that had been hollowed out decades ago. Underwater facilities released submarines that transformed into spacecraft once they reached the surface. Space stations that had appeared to be mining platforms revealed themselves as massive shipyards. On Mars, Chief Technology Officer Helen Price was overseeing the final preparation of humanity's secret weapons. The quantum torpedoes could destabilize matter at the atomic level. The adaptive shielding learned from enemy attacks and adjusted automatically. The targeting computers could track and engage thousands of targets simultaneously. All weapon systems are ready for deployment, she reported to Admiral Carter. Quantum torpedo production is at full capacity. We can manufacture them faster than the fleet can fire them. Helen had spent 20 years developing these technologies in complete secrecy. Her team of scientists and engineers had worked in hidden laboratories, always knowing that their creations might one day be needed to save humanity. The adaptive shielding was her proudest achievement. Traditional shields failed when they encountered new types of weapons, but her shields analyzed incoming attacks and adapted their frequency to provide maximum protection. The longer a battle lasted, the stronger they became. Lieutenant Colonel Sandra Hughes was commanding the ground assault forces. Her Marines were equipped with powered armor and weapons that could punch through alien ship hulls. They had trained for decades to fight aboard enemy vessels. 1st Marine Division is ready for deployment, she reported. All assault troops are armed and standing by for boarding operations. Sandra's forces were small compared to the massive fleet, but they were crucial for capturing enemy ships and installations. The Zephyrians would learn that humans were as dangerous in close combat as they were in space battles. As the Phoenix fleet assembled, news of New Haven Colony's destruction spread across human space. On every world, people gathered around communication screens to watch the hidden ships emerge from concealment. On Luna Colony, miners stopped their work to stare at the warships rising from secret bases on the moon's far side. They had worked next to those facilities for years without knowing what was inside them. I always wondered what they were building in those restricted areas, said Foreman Gary Miller. Now we know. Children pressed their faces against viewing ports to see the endless stream of battleships passing overhead. The ships were beautiful and terrible at the same time. Their hulls gleamed with advanced armor that could absorb energy weapons and turn the power back against attackers. On Europa Station, the civilian population watched through telescopes as warships emerged from the ice beneath their feet. The station had always been described as a research facility. Now they understood it was also a military base. How did they keep this secret for so long? Asked Dr. Patricia Lee, a xenobiologist who had worked on Europa for 15 years. By making sure that only people who absolutely needed to know were told, replied her colleague, Dr. Frank Wilson. And by making us all believe humanity was weak and defenseless. The Zephyrians had made a critical error. They had based their attack on intelligence about humanity's public fleet. They knew about the 50,000 ships that patrolled human space openly. They had no idea about the 500,000 ships that had been built in secret. Each Phoenix Fleet battleship carried a crew of 800 highly trained personnel. The officers had been selected from the best graduates of hidden military academies. The enlisted personnel had been recruited from civilian populations and given advanced training in secure facilities. Commander Tony Mitchell had spent his entire adult life preparing to command a squadron of these ships. He had trained on simulators so realistic that the actual controls felt familiar when he finally saw them. Squadron 7 is formed up and ready for departure, he reported to Admiral Carter. All ships report combat ready. Tony's squadron consisted of 25 battleships, each one capable of destroying dozens of conventional warships. His crews had practiced coordinated attacks until they could execute complex maneuvers without conscious thought. The Phoenix fleet used advanced AI systems to coordinate their attacks. The computers could process battlefield information faster than any human mind and adjust tactics in real time, but the final decisions were always made by human commanders. As the assembly continued, Admiral Carter was promoted to Supreme Fleet Commander of all human military forces. She stood in the command center of the USS Retribution, a massive command ship that served as the fleet's mobile headquarters. All task forces report ready for departure, announced her operations officer, Colonel Mark Rodriguez. We can begin the assault in 6 hours. Lisa looked at the tactical display showing the positions of all 500,000 ships. The fleet was organized into multiple task forces, each one larger than most alien navies. The Zephyrians were about to learn what real military power looked like. Set course for Zephyrian space, she ordered. Maximum speed. It's time to show them the price of murdering innocent civilians. The Phoenix fleet departed human space in perfect formation. 500,000 warships moving as one toward their enemy. The largest military force ever assembled by any species in the galaxy was going to war. Behind them, on every human world, people watched their departure with mixed emotions. Pride in their species' hidden strength, grief for the lost colony, and anticipation for the justice that was coming. The Zephyrians had wanted to send humanity a message about staying in their place. Instead, they had awakened something that would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. War Commander HFY was about to learn that some sleeping giants should never be disturbed. The human fleet arrived at Kepler Station like a storm made of metal and fire. War Commander HFY stood on the bridge of his flagship at the Zephyrian border fortress, watching his sensors with growing disbelief. The readings had to be wrong. No species could field this many warships. How many human vessels are approaching? He demanded. Sir, our sensors are reading 500,000 ships, his tactical officer replied with a shaking voice. But that cannot be accurate. Humans only have 50,000 ships in their entire fleet. Run the scan again, HFY ordered. He had destroyed the human colony to show them their place in the galaxy. A small retaliation force was expected. This was something else entirely. The second scan confirmed the first. 500,000 human warships were approaching Kepler Station at maximum speed. Each ship was larger and more advanced than anything in the Zephyrian military database. Send an emergency message to the High Council, HFY said. Request immediate reinforcements. All available fleets. But it was too late for reinforcements. Supreme Fleet Commander Lisa Carter watched the Zephyrian fortress grow larger on her main screen. The enemy had 10,000 ships defending their border station. Under normal circumstances, that would be a formidable force. Today, it was completely inadequate. All task forces prepare for engagement, she announced over the fleet communication system. Remember New Haven Colony. Show them no mercy. Captain Danny Foster commanded the lead attack formation aboard the USS Vengeance. His ship's weapons were already locked onto multiple Zephyrian targets. The enemy vessels looked primitive compared to the advanced technology humanity had developed in secret. Tactical analysis complete, reported his weapons officer, Lieutenant Sarah Kim. Enemy shields are standard plasma barriers. Our quantum torpedoes will punch right through them. Fire when ready, Danny ordered. The first salvo from the human fleet lit up space like a second sun. Thousands of quantum torpedoes streaked toward the Zephyrian formation. The aliens had never seen weapons like these before. Their shields, designed to stop conventional energy weapons, were useless against quantum destabilization fields. The lead Zephyrian battleship simply vanished as quantum torpedoes tore its molecular structure apart. The second ship broke in half when its hull could not withstand the subatomic disruption. A third ship tried to return fire, but its plasma cannons had no effect on the adaptive human shields. Return fire ineffective, reported Lieutenant Kim. Their weapons cannot penetrate our shielding. War Commander HFY watched in horror as his fleet was destroyed around him. 60 ships gone in the first minute of battle. The human weapons were beyond anything the Zephyrian Empire had ever encountered. All ships, concentrate fire on the lead human vessel, he ordered desperately. Every Zephyrian weapon in the sector focused on the USS Vengeance. Hundreds of plasma beams struck the human dreadnought's shields. The advanced barrier system analyzed each attack, adjusted its frequency, and reflected the energy back at the attackers. Shield strength actually increasing, Danny's tactical officer announced with amazement. The adaptive system is converting their attacks into additional power. Captain Foster smiled grimly. Return fire. Full spread. The Vengeance unleashed its entire arsenal at once. Quantum torpedoes, plasma cannons, and gravitational disruptors fired in perfect coordination. 6 Zephyrian heavy cruisers were destroyed in a single salvo. The alien formation began to fall apart as ships tried to escape the slaughter. Commander Tony Mitchell led Task Force 7 against the station's defensive platforms. His 25 ships moved in perfect formation, their targeting computers tracking hundreds of enemy positions simultaneously. All ships, synchronize strike, he ordered. Target the main power generators. 25 battleships fired as one. Their combined assault overloaded Kepler Station's shields in seconds. The massive orbital fortress, built over centuries by the Zephyrian Empire, cracked apart like an egg. Secondary explosions rippled through its structure as ammunition stores detonated. The battle lasted exactly 17 minutes. When it was over, the Zephyrian border fleet was completely destroyed. 10,000 enemy ships reduced to floating debris. Not a single human vessel had been lost or even seriously damaged. Supreme Fleet Commander Carter surveyed the battlefield with satisfaction. Signal all task forces. Proceed to Phase 2 targets. Show the galaxy what happens when you attack human civilians. The human fleet split into multiple formations and jumped to hyperspace. Each task force was heading for a different Zephyrian military installation. The aliens were about to learn that their empire's defenses were worthless against humanity's secret technology. Task Force Alpha emerged at the Zephyrian homeworld. Captain Laura Anderson commanded the lead squadron as they approached the planet's orbital defenses. The alien capital was protected by thousands of ships and dozens of battle stations. Enemy fleet strength is 15,000 vessels, her tactical officer reported. They're moving to intercept. Engage with full force, Laura ordered. No survivors. The battle for the Zephyrian homeworld was even more one-sided than the fight at Kepler Station. Human quantum torpedoes tore through the defending fleet like it was made of paper. Advanced human fighters outmaneuvered alien interceptors with ease. Admiral Sandra Hughes led the ground assault forces. Her Marines boarded the orbital defense platforms using specialized assault pods that could punch through enemy hull armor. Once inside, her troops moved with deadly efficiency. Platform 7 secured, she reported over the communication system. No enemy resistance remaining. The Zephyrian defenders had never faced human soldiers in powered armor. The Marine battlesuits could shrug off alien small arms fire and gave their wearers superhuman strength and speed. What should have been difficult boarding actions became simple mop-up operations. On the planet below, Supreme Chancellor Vorthak watched his empire's greatest defenses crumble in hours. The humans were systematically destroying everything the Zephyrians had built over thousands of years. How is this possible? He demanded of his military advisors. Our intelligence said humans were weak and divided. It appears our intelligence was wrong, Chancellor, replied General Kekstar, the Empire's top military commander. The humans have been hiding their true capabilities. This fleet is beyond anything we can match. Similar scenes played out across Zephyrian space. Human task forces struck military bases, shipyards, and fleet formations with overwhelming force. The aliens' desperate calls for help went unanswered as their communication networks were systematically destroyed. Colonel Kevin Thompson led the assault on the main Zephyrian fleet base at Rigel Station. His 100 ships faced off against 20,000 defenders. The battle was over in 23 minutes. All enemy vessels destroyed, he reported to Fleet Command. Moving to secondary targets, Lieutenant. Colonel Rebecca Davis commanded the strike force that hit the Zephyrian Military Academy on Vega Prime. The planet was home to 50,000 officer cadets and the Empire's most advanced military research facilities. Surrender now and your lives will be spared, she broadcast to the planet's defenders. Continue to resist and share the fate of New Haven Colony. Most Zephyrian commanders chose to surrender rather than face annihilation. They had seen what human weapons could do to their ships and stations. Fighting back was pointless suicide. The few who did resist were destroyed quickly and efficiently. Human quantum torpedoes left no wounded survivors or damaged ships. The weapons either missed completely or erased their targets from existence. War Commander HFY, the alien who had ordered the attack on New Haven Colony, was captured when his damaged flagship was boarded by human Marines. He found himself face to face with Lieutenant Sarah Martinez, whose family had died in the colony massacre. "You killed my parents," she said quietly as her Marines secured the bridge. HFY looked at the young human officer with a mixture of fear and confusion. "How did you hide such power? Our spies reported that humanity was defenseless." "We let you think that," Sarah replied. "We wanted you to believe we were weak. It made you careless. Within 2 weeks, the entire Zephyrian Empire had fallen. Their military forces were destroyed, their leaders captured or dead, and their homeworld occupied by human troops. An empire that had dominated its region of space for millennia was reduced to scattered refugee fleets begging for sanctuary." Supreme Fleet Commander Carter stood on the bridge of her flagship in orbit above the former Zephyrian capital. The planet's government had surrendered unconditionally after witnessing the destruction of their military. "Signal all human colonies," she ordered. "The threat has been eliminated. New Haven Colony has been avenged." The 500,000-ship Phoenix fleet had proven that humanity was not the weak, scattered species the galaxy believed them to be. They were the most powerful military force in known space, and they were no longer hiding that fact. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted permanently. Other alien civilizations watched the destruction of the Zephyrian Empire with growing alarm. If humanity could do this to one of the galaxy's ancient powers, what could they do to smaller nations? The age of human dominance had begun. The trial of War Commander HFY took place aboard the USS Vengeance, now stationed in permanent orbit above the former Zephyrian capital world. Captain Danny Foster had converted one of his ship's cargo bays into a courtroom. Representatives from dozens of alien species attended the proceedings. They wanted to see how humanity would handle justice after such a devastating victory. Judge Patricia Williams, a former colonial administrator who had lost friends on New Haven, presided over the trial. She looked down at the alien commander who had ordered the massacre of 2 million innocent people. "You stand accused of genocide, war crimes, and the unprovoked attack on a civilian population," she announced. "How do you plead?" HFY stood straight despite his restraints. "I followed the orders of my government. I was defending my empire against human expansion. By murdering children? By destroying hospitals and schools?" Judge Williams asked. "There were babies on New Haven Colony who had never even heard of your empire." The trial lasted 3 days. Witnesses testified about the attack. Survivors shared their stories through recorded messages. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable. In the end, HFY was sentenced to life imprisonment rather than execution. Some humans wanted blood for blood, but President Rodriguez had insisted on showing mercy where the aliens had shown none. "We are better than they are," she announced to the galaxy. "We do not murder prisoners or commit genocide. That is what separates us from those who would destroy innocent worlds." The former Zephyrian territories were placed under human administration. Admiral Danny Foster was promoted to Fleet Admiral and given command of the occupation forces. His 500,000 ships were permanently deployed throughout former enemy space. New human naval bases were constructed on a dozen worlds. The massive shipyards that had built the Phoenix fleet in secret were expanded and moved to strategic locations. Humanity was making it clear that their military dominance was permanent. On the ruins of New Haven Colony, construction teams were already at work building a memorial. Ben Taylor Jr., one of only 47 survivors who had been off-world when the attack came, returned to see his home. The crystal formations were gone, melted into glass by alien plasma fire. The farms where his family had worked for generations were ash and radioactive dirt. The cities where millions had lived were craters in the ground. "We will rebuild," announced Memorial Director Carol Stone as she showed Ben the construction plans. "But first, we remember." The memorial would list the name of every person who died in the massacre. 2,300,000 names carved into walls of black stone. At the center would stand a massive statue representing the human spirit that could not be broken by alien aggression. Ben placed flowers at the spot where his family farm had been. His parents, his sister Amy, and hundreds of friends were gone forever. But their sacrifice had revealed humanity's true strength to the galaxy. They thought they were killing weak colonists, he said quietly. Instead, they woke up the most powerful military force in space. The other alien civilizations were desperate to avoid humanity's anger. The Altarian Federation sent Ambassador Linda Chen to Earth with offers of alliance and trade agreements. The Draconian hegemony, known for their aggressive expansion, suddenly became interested in peaceful coexistence. "We had no knowledge of the Zephyrian attack," Ambassador Chen insisted as she met with President Rodriguez. "The Altarian Federation condemns their actions completely." President Rodriguez listened politely but made no commitments. Humanity had learned that alien promises of peace could not be trusted. The galaxy would have to prove its good intentions through actions, not words. The militant Draconian hegemony was even more eager to avoid conflict. Their Supreme War Chief arrived on Earth personally to negotiate a non-aggression treaty. "The hegemony seeks only peace with the mighty human empire," he declared through a translator. "We offer tribute and recognition of human superiority in all disputed territories." It was a remarkable change from species that had previously viewed humans as primitive newcomers to galactic civilization. The destruction of the Zephyrian Empire had sent a clear message about the consequences of threatening human interests. Dr. Helen Price was promoted to Director of Advanced Weapons Development and given unlimited resources to continue her research. Her quantum torpedoes and adaptive shielding had proven decisive in the war. Now she was working on even more advanced technologies. "The galaxy has seen what our current weapons can do," she told her research team. "Let's make sure they never want to test our future capabilities." Her scientists were developing new types of shields that could protect entire planets from orbital bombardment. They were also working on weapons that could destroy ships by disrupting the quantum fields that held matter together. The human fleet continued to grow. The secret shipyards were now building vessels openly, and new designs were appearing every month. The galaxy watched nervously as humanity's military power expanded beyond what any single species had ever possessed. Admiral Lisa Carter, now Supreme Commander of all human military forces, established her headquarters on New Terra, a fortress world built specifically to coordinate the defense of human space. Her office overlooked a vast complex where strategy for the entire galaxy was planned. "Status report on fleet deployment," she requested from her Chief of Staff, General Robert Kim. "All major star systems have been secured," he reported. "We have established permanent bases in former Zephyrian territory. The other alien governments are maintaining peaceful relations." "Good. Any signs of military buildup among potential threats?" "None, ma'am. If anything, most species are reducing their military forces. They seem to be concluding that large fleets are pointless against our technology." Lisa nodded with satisfaction. The goal was not to conquer the galaxy, but to ensure that no other species would ever again consider attacking human civilians. The demonstration of overwhelming force had achieved that objective. Back on Earth, children learned about the New Haven massacre in their history classes. They studied how humanity had revealed its hidden strength and avenged the innocent dead. The story became a legend that inspired pride in their species' capabilities. Lieutenant Sarah Martinez, who had captured War Commander Thexvi, was promoted to captain and given command of her own battleship. The USS New Haven was assigned to patrol the memorial system, ensuring that the dead colony would never be forgotten. "We stand guard over the memory of 2 million souls," she told her crew during their first visit to the memorial world. They died believing humanity was defenseless. We lived to prove they were wrong. The Phoenix fleet had become the dominant force in galactic politics. Human ambassadors were welcomed eagerly by alien governments. Trade agreements favored human interests. Territorial disputes were settled in humanity's favor without argument. Some human leaders worried about the responsibility that came with such power. President Rodriguez convened regular meetings with philosophers and ethicists to ensure that humanity used its strength wisely. We must never become what the Zephyrians were, she reminded her advisors. Power without wisdom leads to tyranny. We protect the innocent, we do not oppress them. The galaxy had entered a new age. Humanity's secret was revealed and their dominance was absolute. The Phoenix fleet patrolled space lanes that had once been controlled by alien empires. Human colonies expanded into regions that had been forbidden to them just months before. But the most important change was in how the galaxy viewed humanity. They were no longer seen as weak newcomers struggling to find their place among ancient civilizations. They were recognized as the supreme military power, a force that could destroy entire empires when sufficiently provoked. The memorial on New Haven was completed 5 years after the massacre. Ben Taylor Jr., now the memorial's chief caretaker, gave tours to visitors from across the galaxy. Alien diplomats and human students learned about the price of underestimating humanity's resolve. This is where it began, he would tell each group as they stood before the wall of names. This is where the galaxy learned that humanity's mercy should never be mistaken for weakness. In orbit above the memorial world, the USS Vengeance maintained its eternal watch. Captain Foster had requested the assignment personally. His ship would remain there as long as the memorial existed, a reminder that the dead had been avenged and their sacrifice remembered. The Phoenix fleet continued to grow. New ships joined the force every month, each one more advanced than the last. Humanity was ensuring that they would never again be caught defenseless by alien aggression. Admiral Carter stood in her office on New Terra, looking out at the stars that humanity now dominated. The cost had been terrible, but the lesson was clear. The galaxy was safer when humans were strong enough to protect the innocent and punish those who would harm them. The age of human dominance had begun, built on the graves of New Haven Colony, and the determination that such a massacre would never happen again.